A little delay there. And here we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. This is, of course, Coffee Talk. And we are live on YouTube and also podcasting on Fistful of Radio. And if you're looking for me on YouTube, of course, that's at Coffee Talk Live or Prepper University, simultaneously broadcasting on both channels, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. And that's probably how it's going to be referred to for a very long time. And then again, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon under most circumstances anyways. As we get ready to jump into what is going on in the world today, what's going on in the news, some things you may have heard about, some things maybe not so much. And naturally, since there are people who are listening and not watching, I do try to read through as many of the comments in the live portion as is reasonable so that you can keep up with the conversation. I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people who have chimed in thus far. I see Helter is here today. Dragon, Urban Angst, Monkey, Boogers, Brian is here, Velvet Pilot, Chris Severin, Donna is here, Deanna Martin, Fluke Man, Bingo. Glad you could all make it today. These are some of the people that have chosen to chime in and want to jump in on the topics. If you are on X, though, I don't think I can see your comments. I can only see them if they're on one of the YouTube channels where this is broadcasting out of. As we get ready to see what is going on in the world today. The world today. Monkey says New Zealand is scrapping its cigar ban. Yeah, I saw that. And while they're scrapping it, Great Britain's trying to push it. As you recall, we read the story, I believe it was about a week ago, where King Charles has announced that they're going to try to phase out the sale of cigarettes by 2035, right? Something like that. Every year they're going to raise the age until you can no longer purchase them. They'll lose all that tax money. And I see Merv John is here. Glad you could make it. And I talked about something yesterday and had to do with China and their latest scare, their latest virus scare, as they try to convince people that their hospitals are jammed full of people with respiratory problems. And I pointed out that their hospitals always look like that. They always look like that. Their hospitals are always jammed full of people. You could be there for 24 30, 32 hours waiting to be even admitted through the emergency room. Unless, I mean, you better go in there with your arm in your other hand and chopped off clean before they'll help you. And they're out there in the streets spraying disinfectant in hazmat suits. And I was like, watch, they're going to try to make something big out of it. And we're going to start this all over again. You never know. And Freedom for All says you can't smoke till you're 70. Yeah, it's getting to that. That's where they're headed with this. So we jump back. And this is an article that comes from the State of the Union. State of the Union. Guess what? The U.S. sounds the alarm after new Chinese pneumonia outbreak. Yeah, here we go. Here it comes, folks. Pneumonia outbreak, health topics. U.S. officials are concerned about a new outbreak of respiratory illness in China, particularly affecting children. And I'll point out again, when they showed those video clips from the Beijing hospital, I didn't see any kids. Did you? Hospitals in northern China are overwhelmed with sick children, leading to questions from the World Health Organization about the outbreak. Data shows an increase in respiratory illnesses among children, including mycoplasmia, pneumonia, RSV, adenovirus, and influenza virus. Make up your mind. U.S. Ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, said China's recent pneumonia outbreak raises serious questions, and the World Health Organization is asking them. It's time to abandon C virus deception and delays, as transparent and timely information saves lives, he continued, issuing the challenge to China that full cooperation with the international community is not an option. It's a public health imperative. Will Beijing step up? God, these people, they're wet behind the ears. This comes after the C virus plandemic, which was marked by deception and cover-ups from China and the World Health Organization. There are concerns about transparency and cooperation in addressing the current outbreak. The WHO wrote in a statement, since mid-October 2023, WHO has been monitoring data from Chinese surveillance systems that have been showing an increase in respiratory illness in children in northern China. Adding, today, WHO held a teleconference with Chinese health authorities in which they provided requested data on respiratory illnesses among children in northern China. Yeah, are we going to fall for this again? Are we going to fall for it again, people? Catch up some of the comments here real quick. Monkey says, even if their new prime minister says banning the cigars would just make an untaxable black market for them. That's true. And then you'll be going to jail for possession of a cigar, basically. Fluke Man says he's going away on Thursday and won't be listening live for a few months unless I stay up until 4 a.m. Really? Well, I hope wherever you're going, you enjoy yourself. Freedom for All says, I don't smoke cigars, but for some reason I've been craving one. Huh. And Henry says, just in time for the election. I know it. Let's lock everything down again. Bingo says, did you see the UK had its first case of swine flu in a human? No, I did not hear that. And Monkey says, so is everything going to lock down over pneumonia? Well, they're gonna claim, if they keep pushing with this, they're going to claim all those respiratory illnesses are linked to some new virus and it causes those symptoms. That's what they'll say, I'm sure. And Urban Angst says, out of curiosity, were these children vaccinated numerous times in the last 3 years? And yeah, you used the V word in full. So did I. I bet you they were. I bet you they were, especially in China, where you had less of a choice than you did anywhere else. Merv says WHO is going to be completely useless again. The WHO is useless. They're NATO. A lot of these organizations no longer serve a purpose, and they try to force a situation to keep their jobs. Chris says, interesting how a lot more press coverage since Biden's meeting with Gigi. No kidding. I see that. And Dragon says, I'm waiting for the WHO to put a press conference saying there's no evidence of H2H transmission and there's no cause for concern, and then being plunged into a lockdown 6 months later. All people is here. Glad you could make it. And Helter says, time for mail-in voting again during the elections. And Nature Nerd says, tens of millions smoke in the UK at least. A lot of people in Europe smoke. Yeah. And Spectre says, he's late, but I'm here. No longer over there. And then I see A4301 is here. A4301 has joined us. But yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all, because they're linking all these illnesses. They're claiming mycoplasmia, pneumonia, RSV, adenovirus, and influenza viruses, illnesses among children. I have no way of knowing that. I don't trust that. The Beijing and all of China hospitals always look like that. I've seen footage from the past and photographs in the past where there's like 1,000 people in the waiting room. Don't show me a video now and claim that this is new. It's not new. Spraying disinfectant in the street in hazmat suits, just trying to scare people. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And people have speculated, and this was even brought up yesterday, that China is having financial problems on a large scale. They can't afford to do another lockdown. But remember, an analogical thought society and a communist one at that, they are not above that level of destruction of their infrastructure and of their financial structure to corral their people even further and tie them up even further. It's all about control. So no, they don't care. They don't care. They'll do it again. Now, I thought this was interesting, and it kind of ties in a little bit. It kind of ties in a little bit. I don't know if anyone has seen this particular article, but I think it's pretty important. If I'm opening the right one here, it's being a little sluggish. And this is from the New York Post. If it comes up, ex-White House official sheds more light on fate of researcher who may have caused COVID pandemic. And I'll tell you why I'm talking about this in a moment. Former Trump administration official has claimed it's certainly possible the Chinese government killed a Wuhan scientist who may have caused the C virus pandemic by secretly working on a vaccine months before the global health crisis broke out. Dr. Robert Kadlec, who served as an official in the biodefense and epidemic response departments during the pandemic, said Chinese military scientist Zhu Yuzhen was conducting research on live animals at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in 2019 and filed a patent for a C virus vaccine in February 2020, barely 1 month after China put Wuhan into a lockdown due to the first outbreak. 3 months later, Dr. Yuzhen died when he allegedly fell from the roof of the Wuhan Institute. That's convenient. Fell off the roof, did he? How'd he get up there? That's real convenient. He accidentally fell from the roof. Dr. Robert Kadlec, I read that. I don't know why they have to tell us that twice, because it's here and it's here. It's like the same paragraph exactly. When asked whether he thought it was possible Yuzhen was killed for starting the pandemic, Kadlec replied, "It's certainly possible. We consider that as a plausible possibility. However, we have no evidence to make that assessment." Okay. I think it's real interesting how governments, all governments do this. They do it in the United States. They do it in Great Britain, in Russia, China, wherever. Want to blame whatever happened on one guy. You expect me to believe that the whole incident comes down to this Dr. Yuzhen, who somehow fell off the roof of a building. So you can't even find him and find out if it's true. It's like the guy who assassinated Kennedy. He's like, "I'm a patsy. You think I did this by myself?" Oh, man. Catching up some comments here. Flukeman says the government will probably make more money when the police shut down illegal cigarette businesses and confiscating the money and property. That's right. Asset forfeiture is big business in the United States. Spectre says, and their population numbers are way off. Monkey says, wouldn't be surprised if China just goes all-out war with Taiwan as a last chance to recover their economy. Well, if China, if they do anything, it's going to be against Myanmar, because there's a lot of conflict there, and there's a big Chinese military buildup on that border at the moment. Merv says if they could control us further, they can work us longer and harder. They won't need to use tobacco tax. And Monkey says since war trend tends to help countries recover economically or backfire and be much worse. Urban says, so some doctor in a lab basement thought he could patent something before Pfizer. Yeah. And Savage Lee said he sneezed, got stuck at the bottom of his shoe. Poof, C virus. Yeah, that must be it. That must be it. How could he possibly get that out of the lab? Was there a hole in his suit? I don't believe any of that, but I think it's interesting how governments always want to narrow something down to a single person. One guy or one woman is responsible responsible. It's kind of like that topic I brought up before in Massachusetts, where it was discovered that some 30 plus thousand, was it 28, 30,000, something like that, cases involving drugs. The lab results had been doctored. And so they had somewhere close to 30,000 false convictions because of false positives on drug results and drug testing done by laboratories on behalf of the court over a period of like 10 years. I think it was like 10 years. I could be off on that number. 8 years, 10 years, something. And they narrowed it down to a single lab technician who was doing it on purpose. No help. No one ever figured it out before. And Massachusetts refused to reevaluate any of those cases. And there's still people sitting in jail because of some of that. But yeah, one person's responsible for all that. One person. I'm supposed to believe that. No one else is involved. The DA didn't know. Other people in the lab didn't know. No one in the court knew. No detectives knew. Yeah, sure. I believe that. Monkey says he always remembers someone told him politics is the dangerous game to play. And Urban said sometimes people lose access to their own children for failing a corrupt drug test by the state. That is true. That is true. And then Prime Mover says, is it safe to keep around in the chamber? Haven't watched it yet. I'd say yes, as long as there's no kids or idiots in the household. Yeah, that's a video that I put up on the Prepper University today. Under most circumstances, it is. But I just thought that was amusing to me that you're going to sit there and blame one guy, and you can't even verify it because he fell off the roof somehow. Fell off the roof. Another one from the New York Post, because you may have heard this just recently. Biden is explaining inflation. He's explaining why prices are too high. He says Biden admits prices are too high. That's nice, but he blames sellers for 18% inflation. Whose fault is it? Oh, it's the people that are selling stuff. I see. President Biden acknowledged Monday that prices are still too high and argued that companies should lower them after an 18% jump in consumer costs since he took office. We know that prices are still too high for too many things, that times are still too tough for too many families, the 81-year-old said near the White House. We've made progress, but we have more work to do, Biden added. Let me be clear to any corporation has not brought their prices back down. Even as inflation has come down, even supply chains have been rebuilt. It's time to stop the price gouging and give the American consumer a break. Oh, I see. So when he took office, prices went up as part of some conspiracy from sellers and manufacturers. And it's got nothing to do with any government policies. I understand. The prices of some goods, such as food products, are expected to decline in the coming months, but periods of general deflation are rare in U.S. history. Don't expect the prices of poultry or eggs to be coming down because they're culling flocks again. We've talked about that in recent weeks. And now ducks. I know in Georgia, some duck farms were forced to cull ducks. So the prices of all that is going to be climbing again, eggs and poultry. Where are we here? President Joe Biden speaks about supply chain issues in the Indian Treaty Room of the White House complex in Washington Monday. That is the 27th of November. The president was also attacked Republicans Monday, saying that they want to go back to the bad old days when corporations looked around the world to find the cheapest labor they could find, just to send the jobs overseas and then import the products back to the United States, despite opposition to outsourcing being a signature issue for former President Donald Trump. Yeah, sure. That's not, we've been outsourcing since the 60s. and it's not because of Republicans. Unbelievable, the stuff that this guy comes up with. Cruising says, can we just blame the government for inflation, but also blame corporations that are up on profit margins despite the inflation too, without excusing the government? And Dragon said, just because inflation comes down, it doesn't mean the prices came down. You would need deflation or negative inflation for that to happen. 18 price rise is here to stay. And Deanna says, whenever I hear, let me be clear, I stop listening because here come the lies. Yeah, or if he says, I'm being honest, or if he says something like something to that effect, I'm not making this up, and then something comes out that when they fact check it, that makes no sense. Bingo says, I saw an article last week that one of those 3-letter agencies said the C virus 100% was created in Wuhan, and they believe it was intended to be used against the West. But their people got sick accidentally. Who knows? Who knows? You'll never get the truth. Urban says, funny, they're not ever culling at the insect farms. Yeah, and I can imagine that's pretty rancid. Spectre says, breed I used to buy was around 1.98 to 219. Not sure what you're talking about there, Spectre. Helter said, Uncle Joe probably wants to send another $1 billion to Ukraine. Yeah, and if they'd stop sending all that money overseas, that would help. Nature Nerd says Biden wants price controls, which makes everything worse in every country it's been tried in. That is true. When the government regulates prices, things get screwy. Merv said booger eater Biden with Hillary and Michelle today. Oh, Monkey says Spectre was talking about bread prices. I understand. That's what it is. It says breed I used, and I didn't realize that was supposed to be bread. So bread was 198 to 219, now 389 to 418. I understand now, Spectre. Just a typo. I get it. But yeah, he just wants to. He's going to sit there and blame the blame corporations. He says, now we're building the products here and exporting products overseas, Biden continued. We're not importing jobs, folks. We're not importing anything other than what we make. What are we making here now? You know, the one of the last industries that they still had in the United States was incandescent light bulbs, and they banned them under the Biden administration. You can't sell them anymore, which is one of the main reasons why they didn't want to switch to the fluorescent bulbs in the first place. Natural light bulbs were made here. All that other stuff is imported from China. That was the biggest argument when the government started to crack down on that some like decades ago, or like more than 10 years ago, that you're taking an entire industry away from the United States for a light bulb that's actually bad for people's eyes, that doesn't work better necessarily or operate cheaper necessarily than a regular incandescent bulb, at least not by a margin that's really that significant. Nature Nerd says the more lockdowns that China does, the more likely Chinese people are going to have an uprising. They can try. They tried it in Tiananmen Square. It didn't work out too well for them in the end. Spectre says the new light bulbs give me a headache. There's a flickering effect from it, and it's bad for you. A lot of people. This is why so many people have headaches now, as opposed to back in the day. Things have gotten so much worse with that. Natural light bulbs, standard incandescent bulbs, are better for you than the fluorescent ones. But like I said, they're all imported. And one more here from Urban. He says there was a Canadian federal ban on incandescent light bulbs a few years back, and they had to lift the ban after public pressure. Now they may have to lift the ban on single-use plastics. Finally. Indeed. And there's a lot to be said for that as well. We talked about Dublin the last couple of podcasts. We talked about Dublin and the riots out there and why that occurred. And you could be seeing that in France here very shortly. as France is getting revved up. And France is not above riots and looting. It's been ongoing in Paris for like 4 or 5 years now. Spectre says time to go back to oil lamps. And this comes from the Telegraph. It says murder of French teenager could be society's tipping point. And here you see a funeral in the photo for those of you who can see. It says the murder of a 16-year-old boy could prove a tipping point for French society. Emmanuel Macron's government warned as civilians were told not to take the law into their own hands. The stark words from spokesman Oliver Véran came as officials called for calm after armed paramilitary activists marched into a suburb where suspects are arrested over the killing are thought to live. The teenager, named only as Thomas, was killed on November 19th at a village dance party in Crépole, south of Lyon. He was stabbed during a brawl that is believed to have broken out when a group of youths, said to be from a nearby housing estate, projects, tried to gatecrash the event. 9 people were wounded, 4 of them seriously. Conservative and hard-right politicians have cast the death as evidence of danger from immigrants and minorities. During a visit in the village of Crépole on Monday, Mr. Véran said that the death of Thomas was a tragedy that puts us at risk of a tipping over of our society if we don't rise to the occasion, he said. It's up to the judiciary to mete out justice, not for the French public themselves. Tell that to the French Revolution. He warned while acknowledging that the death of Thomas was the result of more than a simple fight at a village dance. More than 100 hard-right activists traveled to the nearby town of Romans-sur-Lisère on Saturday looking for a fight with young people from La Monnaie neighborhood, police said. Another hard-right gathering in Romans was dispersed by police on Sunday. So, and I'm surprised they even said it, that they mentioned immigrants and minorities. What they mean is illegal aliens, migrants that are living in housing communities, and that they gatecrashed some parties, started a ruckus, knives came out, and they stabbed a bunch of people, and this kid died. And the villagers and the other people want something done about it, and French government is sitting there saying, "Nah, let the law handle it. It's all right." Yeah, sure. Let the law work on it. Spectre says, look at all that's going on right now and all the threats about to happen, all just in time for the election. No kidding. Urban says minorities in some small towns in France, the migrant population is fast becoming a majority, which is part of the problem. And this is also what's going on in Dublin and in Ireland entirely when you're talking about that currently 20% of the Irish population is migrants. That's insane. If I read that correctly when we were going over that article yesterday, 20% of their population, you're diluting their culture. They're going to lose their identity. And if they feel like they're losing their identity, they're going to fight for it. Especially in these long established European countries that have clung to an identity for centuries. It's not like in the United States where it's always been a little confusing to try to force that melting pot concept, although we're kind of at our breaking point as well. Then when you're talking about places like that had a better sense of a national pride, like Ireland, like Scotland, like France, like Switzerland, like the Netherlands, and their government is undermining that national pride, undermining that national identity. And people are flooding in from other cultures who don't give a damn about the established culture and social and cultural identity of those countries and want to turn them on their ear, want to force the issue. Sooner or later, somebody's going to fight back. And this is where we're getting to. It just remains to be seen whether or not they can accomplish it, because the only way they can truly accomplish it is by ejecting, repatriating all the people that have invaded their country. And it is an invasion. Nature Nerd says people who have the option to use old light bulbs, appliances, gas heaters, and cars if they want to. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And limiting options creates shortages and worse quality of life. I agree, Nature Nerd. Helter says the tipping point was when an immigration policy was decided to make Europeans minorities in their own countries. And Brian says they already have. Yeah. Spectre says there is a bit of light in this darkness we face around the world. A lot of conservatives are being elected. Remains to be seen if they stand true to what they were elected for, because you never know. You never know. And that's what I talk about when I talk about or when I mention was it Vivek Ramaswamy? Is it Vivek or Vivek? Vivek? I think it's Vivek Ramaswamy. That he talks a really good game. And he talks about the same thing in America. You know, the society, its cultural identity, it's being diluted, and it's too much, and it's too expensive. It's costing us everything, not just financially. And he wants to eject all these migrants. He wants to, again, repatriate them, send them back where the hell they came from. Talks a really good game. Remains to be seen if he would actually do it if elected. You know what I mean? Urban says, unfortunately, people only react when they feel an existential threat. British, Irish, Italians, French, and the rest of European society have lost their sense of self-preservation. Spectre says he doesn't trust him. Vivek. And Urban says Vivek rhymes with cake. Is it Vivek? Vivek? I've heard it pronounced a couple of different ways, so I'm confused. I'll take your word for it. Spectre says he plagiarized Obama. Did he? Did he plagiarize? That's how come Biden lost the presidential election the first time around. When he was running for president years and years ago, he was caught plagiarizing speeches and was asked to step down. Was asked to step down. And this is, we're going to bounce to New York. We're going to bounce to New York, and we're going to see the results of decades of bad programming in public schools. Fox News, New York City chancellor denies high schoolers who stormed halls demanding Jewish teachers ouster are radicalized. New York City Schools Chancellor David Banks on Monday staunchly denied allegations that the approximately 400 students who swarmed the halls of Hillcrest High School last week demanding the ouster of a Jewish teacher who supports Israel had been in any way radicalized. Let me stop this. This is a video clip I want you to see. I'm going to show it to you here in a minute because they're saying this didn't happen. This is a really good school with wonderful young people. That sounds like you're at the funeral of some badass kid who got caught up and shot. Anyways, back to the article. And I'm so taken aback by this notion that these kids are terrorists or radicalized. Even the kind of language is just terrible, and it's irresponsible, Banks said at a press conference, confirming that some students had been suspended or faced disciplinary action after the incident. Viral video showed students acting out after the teacher's social media profile showed that she attended an off-campus rally in support of Israel. Why are these kids even involved in anything like this? Why are junior high and high school aged kids, and this is a high school, involved in politics at all, in social issues at all? What are they learning? What are they learning? Citing privacy and confidentiality laws, banks declined to say how many students were disciplined or provide more details, but said he did not suspend all the hundreds in the hallway. On November 20th, a teacher at Hillcrest High School was targeted based on her support for Israel expressed in a permissible way outside of school hours and in her Jewish identity, Banks said, outlining how the safety of multiple of our staff and students were put at risk after approximately 400 students acted disruptively during class changing time, roving the school and calling for the removal of a Jewish educator. Officials said the Jewish teacher was on a different floor at the time, and the crowd of students stormed the halls. That is not true. And this is the video clip, and I'm going to try to expand it and play it for you. And I want you to pay attention to what's going on. It's not the best because the video has been pulled everywhere it is, and this is the best we can come up with at the moment. I'll take a look at a couple of comments here real quick before I play the video. Cruising says, I'll take the gamble on Vivek as an unknown versus the known of others. All People says Ramaswampy. Maybe. Nature Nerd says anti-Semitic kids. That's terrible. And the warden made it. Glad you could make it, the warden. All People says Rama swamp creature. Okay. I'm going to expand this. I'm going to play it, and I'm going to describe it after a moment for those of you who can't see what I'm talking about. Spectre says Vivek is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He could be. I don't know. I don't know. It's all talk until you see. It's all talk until you see. I'm going to expand this, and I'm going to play it. And I'll pay attention to what's going on. Sorry for the video quality, but this is important. And I assume you all can see that, those of you who are looking. That's a school police officer covering the person that they're trying to get to. Let me run that one more time. And they're denying that? That didn't happen. And for those of you who could not see, who are just listening, it was a school police officer in a crowded hallway shielding another person with their body while taking blows to the head and the back from students who were trying to slip punches in there. And that the school administration's already admitted that there were over 400 students in that hallway carrying on and being disruptive. What the hell are these kids learning? What are they learning? Where's the school pride? Who remembers the school pride song from the Beach Boys? Who remembers? Who remembers the school pride song? Dragon says he finds it funny everybody's up in arms over religion when the majority of people in America have rejected Abrahamic religions except for the Muslim religion. None of those kids knew that. Those kids don't know anything about it. On the off chance that a couple of them may have to sit in church on Sunday morning, don't know a damn thing about religion. They don't have any respect for authority, no respect for the schools, which I can kind of understand not having any respect for the schools because the schools lie to them constantly, and they are aware of that even though they toe the line. No respect for their parents. No respect for anything. Cougar wants to know how Dusty is. Dusty's fine. Dusty, I don't know where she is, though. There's no one in the room currently. She's probably sleeping on the bed. Glad you could make it, Cougar. Spectre says, beyond messed up, these things did not happen in my day, and I've lived in 3 states as a kid, been in over 6 schools. And Sean says, looks like one radicalized kid. Yeah, I never saw or heard of anything like that when I was in school. Fights between students, sure. We fought. I was in a lot of fights myself. But fighting with adults, attacking a teacher, teenagers trying to fight with a police officer. Never heard of anything like that growing up. Nature Nerd says kids have no respect for their parents, country, school, or the chain of command. Urban says, let's try and code. The children are learning how to hunt J people. Yeah, no kidding. And they don't even know what they're talking about. They don't even know what they're talking about or why they're doing it. Again, rebel without a cause. Rebel without a cause. And don't have anything useful to put all that energy into. Nothing. They're not going to get it from school. They're not going to get it from home. They're not going to get it from a job. They're not going to grow up. They're not going to grow up. And the generational curse will continue and get a little worse and a little worse with every generation. Helter says the American educational system is in jeopardy. What? So a teacher cannot have a different opinion. The West seriously needs to take a look at what's being fed into these kids intellectually. You know, if they just taught the kids academics and left all the socio-political bullshit out of it, they wouldn't have these problems. Seriously. Spectre says we know what the Bible says about children turning on their parents in the last days. Yeah. And Robert says here in Seattle, a cop was caught trafficking drugs. Economy is this bad, I guess. Reminds me reading police selling alcohol and busting during prohibition. Yeah, well, you know, a lot of law enforcement officers are not necessarily honest, are they? And Urban says the brown shirt youth leaders of the 1930s would be proud. Exactly. There's a lot to be said there. And on the same track, we're going to jump to Illinois. And this is really important. And this is from the Western Journal. Illinois school district offers classes separated by race to shrink the learning gap. You listening, Cruising? I know Cruising works for the public education system. Nature Nerd says American history has been for freedom of speech. Not too long ago, people were fine with debate and a wide range of opinions and beliefs. Well, they don't teach debate anymore either, so people don't even know how to argue properly. They just yell and cuss and give you insults. That's their idea of an argument. That's why I do the mail call videos. I put one up on Coffee Talk this morning. Mail call video. This is Illinois again. I thought there was battles fought over segregation. It says to merely exist as a white person today is to hold Black people and Latino people down. That is what the liberals and progressives want everyone to believe as they blame whiteness as the primary cause for the educational inequity in our nation. The educational inequity comes from people not really caring to participate. It's culturally acceptable. If it's culturally acceptable within a demographic to not give a damn about school, they're not going to do anything when they're there. The fallacy is being escalated by Evanston Township High School located in Evanston, Illinois. New classes are being held that are reintroducing segregation into the school and our nation in a whole new way. The goal is to shrink the learning gap that is occurring between Black, Latino, and white students, the Wall Street Journal has reported. Segregation. Chicago area schools offer Black students the option of going to classrooms free from Jewish and or white students. Oh my. When a WSJ reporter arrived at a public meeting to learn more, the district spokeswoman said that they would cancel the meeting if the reporter did not leave. The cause of this gap is being blamed on the existence of whiteness in the school. Public school officials believe that whiteness is a distraction to Black and Latino students. These students need it to go away in order to perform. As a result, optional courses have been set up to exclude the white element. The fact that they are optional bypass any legal issues that could arise due to anti-discrimination laws, according to educational lawyers. Called affinity classes, 200 Black and Latino kids have voluntarily signed up for math classes and a writing seminar made up for kids of a single race taught by a teacher of color. These classes separate white students from Black and Latino students. It's a Band-Aid solution. Yeah. Yeah. Spectre says his dad and stepmom and grandpa were sheriffs. I've seen and heard a lot in my young life, but nothing like what I've been seeing in the last 10 years. And the warden says the race bullshit is getting old. And Cruising says you nailed it. It's about if you give a damn or not when it comes to what you get out of any type of education. And Dragon says the danger in segregated classes is the lowering of standards for one group. True. That's hard to determine in a writing course, but it's easy to objectify tests whether kids have mastered math. This is where we're headed to. Helter says we've learned nothing from the civil rights age. So many died fighting to end segregation only to have segregation pushed voluntarily. And Monkey says solving racism with racism. Exactly. And modern problems require modern solutions meme here. Henry says, I live in Illinois and stay south of Interstate 80. Hey, I lived in Illinois for a while myself, my wife and I. Spectre says, Timecast put a good video out yesterday about the race BS. Catching up some comments here real quick. Urban says, if you can't make the discriminated students smarter, then they will have to make the non-discriminated students dumber. It's math, folks. And Cruising says, boy, how would they feel about 200 plus white kids signing up for a class with only white kids with a white teacher? That would be racism. That would be racism. Nature Nerd says, a year ago, racists and Nazis were the worst insults, and now we're seeing those people are them. And Merv says, if they keep us fighting, that gives us more power and control over us. And Brian made a $15 donation to the channel. Thank you very much, Brian. It goes a long way towards our stray cat sanctuary and the animals that we take care of here. Always very much appreciated when someone's able to make a donation. You know what that makes me think of? Getting away from the news segment here for a minute, I got something I think I can show you that will cast some confusion to the whole desegregation. Who here, I mean, I'm sure most of you have heard of Brown versus Board of Education. Who here off the top of their head knows where that was? Where did Brown versus Board of Education take place? Let me ask you here, and I'm going to show you something. Armin says, will there be coffee talk around Christmas? I will do my best. I will do my best. I did it on Thanksgiving Day. Robert says 2,000 goals, 2,000 Hillary Clinton, Al Gore, modern indoctrination to socialism. I have the book still on this program that came out of the North Korean War to brainwash Americans and POWs. Thank you, Helter. He says Topeka, Kansas. Buckle in, okay? This is going to blow your minds. And I'm sorry if you can't, if you're listening and not watching, I'll have to walk you through this. Hold on a second. I'm going to grab something here real quick. Because, you know, I used to live in Kansas once upon a time. And I have some books here. And I'm going to pull this out. Here we go. This is the sunflower. The sunflower is the yearbook, graduation yearbook from Topeka High School, which is a few blocks away from the Brown versus Board of Education school, which is now a public museum. There ain't nothing in it. If you go through that school, okay, if you go through that school, it's there's nothing in there but photographs. It's a waste of time. This is the 1946, there it is, 1946 Topeka High School graduation yearbook. Okay. Now, what year was Brown versus Board of Education? Somebody tell me. Somebody tell me what year that was. Anybody know off the top of their head? And Spectre says the only people that can't stand up for their race is white people. If you do, you're a racist. Okay, Helter says 1954. And you had all this video footage and photographs of like National Guard and people throwing trash and spitting and, you know, stuff like that. And carrying on. Cruising says sometime in the mid 50s. We're going to go with 1954. Okay. So we're going to open up the yearbook. And we're going to look at the classes, which are mixed classes with white and black students. Black student. Where are we here? I'm trying to see because I'm looking at an angle. Black student. They're mixed race classes in these graduation photos. There's not very many, but they're in here. Black student, black student, black student, black student, black student. I'm sorry, I thought they weren't doing that in Topeka, Kansas at that time. Did I miss something? Why don't we take a look at some of their, here's their junior prom drama class. Black student, black student. So they're doing activities together. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder how much truth there is to some of the things we've been told over the years. Here's a youth center with mixed people. Here, this one will blow your mind. I thought that wasn't tolerated in Kansas at that time. Here's the all-school party. Here's photographs from the all-school party. You see white couples, black couples. Take a good look at the king and queen of the all-school party. You think that would have been allowed in schools that were segregated? Did I miss something? Just saying. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. You never know. Just wanted to throw that out there. Armand says people looked nice back then. Well, these people had school pride. These people had school pride. They're all well dressed. Look at the size of the band. They're all well dressed. They had school pride. They participated. It meant something. The only thing that's segregated in this book is the basketball team, because they have what's referred to here as the colored basketball team, because the national leagues were segregated. The cheerleading squad doesn't look like it's all black to me, though. And look at all of the signatures in this book. I mean, somebody had a lot of friends. And Semper Fi says, hello, friends. Hope everyone is well. Getting our first snow of the year in Western New York. Wow. Okay. And Robert says, even the first Secretary of Education did not Rockefeller. He says he changed the direction of society in a generation. Fluke Man says, in the movie Mississippi Burning, accurate or over-exaggerated? I don't know. I don't think I saw Mississippi Burning. Cruising says, look at the size of the band. Wasn't that the age of big band music? Yeah, 1946, it was still big band. There was still a lot of big band. And they were just getting into different styles, big band, jazz, a lot of dancing music. Spectre says, when you rewrite history, you can make it anything you want. Yes, indeed. And Deanna says they had a dress code in schools then. Yeah. And the students wanted to look good. They wanted to look good. They wanted to look impressive. They dressed appropriately and behaved appropriately for the most part, at least on campus. Armit says the FBI says that yearbook is misinformation. Yeah. And Robert also, oh no, excuse me. He says if you can find birth control or the limitations of offspring by Prevenception by William J. Robinson, mid 1916 to 31, he wrote many books, and they're mind blowing. Okay. And Nature Nerd says only certain states segregated, the majority of states didn't. Yeah, but this is where the Brown versus Board of Education building is, where that fight was supposed to have taken place. And All People says, despite being falsely blamed, the slave descendant blacks of the U.S. do not support affirmative action or reparations or segregation. Inspector says, and has based respect, unlike nowadays. Yeah, they had respect for the school. Deanna says, when you're going to say something else about the Brown case, were you going to say something else about the Brown case? Not specifically. Not specifically. I just wanted to jump into the yearbook because of the date. You know, this is 80 years old. It's going to be almost 80 years old. 77 years old. I'll just drop that over there. But that's where we are now. And yeah, it's an interesting contrast of how much people had for respect, how much respect people had for school in those days, for themselves, for their family. And now there's none. Now the kids, they go to school and they just sit there. They don't pay attention. There's no expectations. They're fed socio-political garbage. Socio-political garbage. They don't learn anything practical. They walk out of the school with a diploma that's not worth the paper it's printed on, and they're not ready for anything. Can't read properly, can't write properly, don't use cursive, can't fill out a job application, can't fill out a check, couldn't write a check. Not that anybody uses checks anymore. Don't know how to behave in a public setting. Don't know how to act at the job, have no respect for their job, probably won't be able to keep it. They're not ready for anything, can't do basic math, can't count money. Illegible handwriting. Deanna says, appreciate that you had a yearbook handy. Yeah, I have I got some oddball stuff over there, some weird books and whatever, but it just occurred to me that might be an interesting prop to talk about here really quickly. All People says, thanks for showing the yearbook. America is not a racist nation, never has been. It's the post-1965 migrants recruited by LBJ policies. And he goes on to say, Mississippi burning tells a false narrative. Armit says, bring back shop class and home ec. And some people really needed that. Not everybody is suited for formal education. That's why they have vocational classes. And I think there's something in here about that too. Trying to remember. I've gone through this book a few times, and I'm trying to think. I believe there's a whole section here dedicated to their separate vocational facility. That's here it is. And that says, if you can't read it, see vocational classes and the Topeka Trade School. And you see here people working on engines and working on electronic components and things like that in the photographs. Because these are students, academically, they can't cut it for whatever reason. So you put them in a vocational school and they learn a trade. because they can also be valuable members of society and earn a decent wage. You don't have that anymore. Brian says some kids wear their pajama pants out to school and in public. Yeah, that's common nowadays. And Spectre says race war started up again right after Obama. And I can agree with that. All People says America's never been racist. And Urban says empty kids become easily controlled adults. Yeah, easily manipulated, as you see. Look at these college campuses right now. And Armin says school could be vastly more practical and doesn't need to take so many years. American school system is a travesty. And with that, I will go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, this is, you are listening to, that is, or watching Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, and at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. And you can also find me on fistfulofradio.com, which is podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Special thanks to Brian, who made a $15 donation to the channel today. Always appreciated whenever anybody can contribute something to the channel. It goes a long way towards helping our shelter animals. And thanks to everyone else who was able to join us today. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will do this again tomorrow. Hope you can join us then.